Welcome to Tableau. Today we're going to be taking a look at how to build a Pareto chart inside of Tableau Desktop. So what do you need to build a Pareto chart? It's actually pretty simple. We need to take a measure, so something quantifiable. In this particular case, we're using the sum of our profit. We've got that sitting on our row shelf, indicated on our y-axis here, versus some dimension. So in this case, we're looking at our customer name, and that's indicated on our x-axis. So what we're really looking at here is the sum of our profit versus those customers. What we're actually doing is we're taking the running total of the profit in descending order. So what does that mean? That means that our highest profit customers are at the very tip of this line here, and as we move across our curve, we're seeing less and less profit to where we're hitting customers that are almost flat, and then here we actually have some of those negative customers. So what is this chart actually used for? It's really used to see the relationship between a dimension, so the relationship between your customers to that measure. So the relationship between your customers and your profit, what is contributing to what? How many customers are contributing to what percentage of our profit? The golden rule behind these Pareto charts is that 80-20. Typically, 80% of your measure is from 20% of your dimension. So I dropped a couple of reference lines in here so we can actually see how close we are. In this particular case, it's actually pretty obvious that well less than 20% of our customers are contributing to 80% of our profit. So very quickly, from a high level, you can see that relationship and see what you actually need to focus on. So how do you build something like this in Tableau? Let's go ahead and try it. Without having to do anything fancy, it's very easy to get that curve. Let me show you how it works. I'll take that measure, I'll take that profit, drop it on our rows. Take any dimension that I want to slice that profit by, so let's go ahead and grab customer name. Go ahead and add all those members. We can sort this thing in descending order. Very simple to do. You can actually click the axis itself here. You could click up here as well. I kind of like using the axis. It just makes a little more sense to me. We can see all those customers with their profit in descending order. So if you picture that chart before, this is really the tip of it here. This is the front of it. Let me go back and show you. Those customers are all sitting right here. They're the highest profit. And as that curve goes across, we're seeing our customers with less and less profit until we actually hit the negative on the very end of this thing. So a couple of things you want to do to this first. Let's fit the whole view. So I'll go ahead and fit the entire view here. We can actually see that nice curve. This doesn't actually look like what we want. Right? We want to see that running total as opposed to all the actual values. The running total is actually a table calculation in Tableau. We can go ahead and just click the drop down on sum of profit. Click our quick table calculation and choose running total. And very quickly, we have that very same curve that we saw before. This is what you're looking for. You can just stop here. There's a couple other things that you might want to do to actually make this a true Pareto chart. Mainly being this isn't a percent of total, right? This is actual profit numbers. This isn't a percent of total. This is actually our customers. So what do we need to do to actually turn these axes to show us, 0 to 100% here, 0 to 100% here? So let's take a look at it. Let's start with the measure itself. So right now we're looking at the running total of our profit. We can go ahead and just stack another table calculation on top of that. We have the ability in Tableau to take one table calculation and go ahead and perform a secondary calculation on top of it. So right now we're looking at the running total going across our chart. Let's go ahead and take a look at that, but also look at on top of it the percent of total going across our chart. Just move this to the side and click apply. We can now see that this axis is now a percentage and we're where we need to be. I'm just going to go ahead and hard code what we're going to run this thing along. So I know we want to compute this by customers. So let's just go ahead and click customer. And I would recommend doing this when you build your Pareto. The other axis is a little bit more tricky. Right? So we have all of our customers, and we want to see what position they are. Now they're already ordered based on profit. So that's good. We don't have to play with that at all. But we need to somehow find out what percentage is the first value compared to the last value, or the second value compared to the last value. So in order to do that, let's build another table calculation. We'll create a calculated field. We'll call this percent of customers. And let's actually build it. So we're going to use a couple of table calculations here. The first one that we're going to use is the index. So what the index actually does, let me move this to the side and kind of show you. Index is basically the relative position of each one of these dimension members. So we can picture it like this. If we're running this across the table, this is number 1, this is number 2, this customer is number 3, 4, 5, all the way through to, let's call it 100 or something like that. We can go ahead and divide that number by the size of our entire table. Size being the total number of members. So this would be 1 divided by 100. This would be 2 divided by 100. So you can kind of quickly see how we can get at that percentage of total based on something that's not a measure, right? It's based on a dimension, but that's okay. We know its position, it's sorted correctly. We can go ahead and calculate that. So let's go ahead and click OK. Let's go ahead and grab that field, drop it on our columns. Things look a little funny. Let's go ahead and take that customer off the view because we don't need that anymore, but we do need to calculate it in that field. So the way you can do that is just drop it on detail. So this looks a little funny. This isn't really what we want. Whenever you're working with table calculations and the view doesn't look correct, don't scrap what you're doing. Come in and take a look at how you're actually computing. And in this particular case, across doesn't make sense anymore. I really want to compute this across customer name. That's why I hard coded that earlier with that running sum of profit. So let's go ahead and select customer name. And now very quickly you can see that we have that nice Pareto curve in the same way that we had before. One thing that you might see is that we're not going to recognize that this is a percentage. So what I might recommend doing is actually taking the axis, formatting it, and just go ahead and select percentage. You can choose how you want to display this particular curve. So maybe these circles don't make sense. I want to hard code a line, or maybe I want bars. Maybe I actually want to color these bars by the sum of our profit. There's all sorts of things you can do aesthetically and functionally after you build the Pareto chart. But what you really have here is that same relationship that we saw to begin with. And we can go ahead and add those reference lines that we saw before at 80 and 20%. So I'll go ahead and add a reference line. We'll just make it a constant 80% for our y-axis and a constant 20% for our x-axis. So very quickly, you can build out this true Pareto chart. I also like doing the quick one sometimes. If you're doing that data analysis, this isn't going to be on a dashboard. It's not going to be for anybody to come view. This is me just trying to look at that percentage. It's really nice to just build these things out real fast and, see that relationship between a dimension and a measure. So hopefully this was helpful. Also, there is in a link down below a companion workbook for you to actually work through one of these things yourself. So feel free to download that and work on it. And again, thanks for joining us today.